Hello, friends. Welcome to the brand new episode of Suman versus Human. Friends, thank you so much for giving me so much of love on the show because we have successfully completed 49 episodes with 48 wonderful people on the show. And today's episode is going to be very, very special because it is our 50th episode of Suman versus Human. And to make this episode more special and vibrant, I have a wonderful guest. She is Anjali Gopalan. My dear friends, I would like to tell you that we, person like me, the persons with disabilities, face lot of discrimination in the societies throughout the world. Not just discrimination, we have to go through lot of challenges in life. But just imagine, what if I tell you that there are few other communities who even go through more and more discrimination than we guys do. They go through not just discrimination, they go through humiliation, they go through lot of defeat in life. But there are few people who are fighting for their equality and rights. One such person is Anjali Gopalan. She have decriminalized section 377 from Indian Penal Code. The credentials are endless, and she have got many top of the world awards from popular countries. So let's know more about her. Let's quickly welcome Anjali Gopalan, founder Naz India Trust. Anjali ma'am, welcome to Suman versus Human.
Thank you so much, Suman, and I am so happy to be here on your 50th, on a landmark time for your podcast. Congratulations, and I'm so honored to be here.
Ma'am, the communities what I'm talking about belongs to
Mm,
LGBTQ plus.
mm,
Ma'am, LGBT is a kind of terminology or the kind of thing which is not understood well by many people in this world. Still, though they are highly educated, not much people know about LGBTQ. And particularly those days when you started NAS, when you
mm.
started thinking and considering about these communities, the awareness is zero. But
Yeah.
even then, you stood for them, you fought for them, and achieved so much. And the achievement is not small, ma'am. You have decriminalized Section 377. What made you to think for them? What made you to establish NAS? Why did you come into this LGBTQ, rights and empowerment? Because
Mm.
people think that it's a big sin. They discriminate a lot. I want to know more
Yeah.
about it, ma'am.
You know, well, my work is in the field of HIV/AIDS prevention and care.
Hmm.
And when I first started working with HIV,
Hmm.
this was in the US,
Hmm.
and it was very much seen as a disease that it was impacting the lives of gay men.
Hmm.
As a matter of fact, when I started my work, they used to call it GRID, gay-related immune dysfunction, or a
Hmm.
gay cancer.
Hmm.
So a lot of my work was with the gay community, and when we first started work, then at that time there were no meds. I s- I don't know how many funerals I have attended.
Hmm.
So when I came back to India,
Hmm.
it made sense for me to be able to continue with my work on HIV prevention and care,
Hmm.
where working with the gay community was very much a part of what I was doing.
Hmm.
So interestingly, I mean, when I came back to India, I was so confident. I was sure obviously I was trained on these issues on prevention and care,
Hmm.
and I was very clear about how to work with communities on HIV prevention.
Hmm.
Except that when I came here, I had to relearn everything because I found the term that was used was men having sex with men.
Hmm.
And there was, um, you know, these men very often were married to women.
Hmm.
And so I said, oh my God, HIV in this country
Hmm.
will most probably go from men to women. So therefore, when we're looking at HIV prevention, we have to look at larger
Hmm.
communities.
Hmm.
So I started my work initially with the community. with the MSM community.
Hmm.
And I say MSM because at that time that was a very donor created word.
Yeah.
But that is what they were called, and that is what the government of India was funding.
Yeah.
And though we never did get funding from government of India, but
Hmm.
our work started with the community. And one of the things that became really clear to me
Hmm.
is that if we don't build communities,
Hmm.
people are going to be lost.
Hmm.
And I also believe from the bottom of my heart
Hmm.
that if you don't value yourself, you're not going to protect yourself.
Yeah.
And it was really unfortunate and sad to see that very often it was not uncommon for me to hear, how does it matter? Anyway, we're not good people. How does it matter what happens to us? No?
Hmm. Hmm.
But if, and also the inability to conceive that yes, you can spend the rest of your life
Hmm.
with another man in a loving, caring relationship.
Hmm.
It's not only about sex,
Hmm.
and that you don't have to give in to the pressure of marriage, because the pressure to get married in our culture is extremely high. It doesn't matter if you are man or woman. I
Hmm.
think the pressure on both is equally there.
Hmm.
And as a matter of fact, there are no spaces for single people in our society.
Yeah.
And Suman, think about it. Look at the intersectionality of, say, people with disabilities
Hmm.
and HIV and sexuality.
Hmm.
This is another area that we just don't talk about, right?
Yes. Yes.
So there's just so much work to be done even now,
Yes. Yes.
in spite of the law having changed and all of it, that to me,
Hmm.
it's critical that we don't let up even for a second.
Those days when you thought of doing this, people would have, opposed you, right, ma'am? No one,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sure no one came forward to help you with the cause.
No, of course there were a lot of issues. As a matter of fact, when we first decided to challenge the law,
Hmm.
Section 377, which was used by the police to harass gay men all the time,
Hmm.
and to harass trans people.
Hmm.
So, of course, there was a lot of, but this was also happening with HIV, not just with homosexuality.
Yeah.
It was not uncommon for me to hear, there are more important things in our country.
Hmm.
You need to work on issues of poverty and women and girl
Yeah.
child education. Why are you wasting your time on these people?
Hmm.
They deserve everything they get.
Hmm.
This kind of absolutely heartless thinking and
Yeah.
talk.
Yeah.
Um, but for me, I feel if I look at it through the lens of, though when we challenge the law,
Hmm.
we did not bring in the rights angle at all.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
for me, it's always been about rights. You have to put the person in the center of the intervention.
Hmm.
And if you don't do that, we are not going to be able to impact lives.
Ma'am, for my listeners, could you please give a slight overview on this 377 section?
Section 377 was a very, now it's been removed under these new laws that have just come into effect from
Yeah.
July 1st.
Yeah.
It has completely been removed from the statutes, and I will discuss that in a bit because I think that's a mistake.
Yeah, ma'am. Sure.
However, when we first challenged 377, we what we asked for was a, because if you look at this law,
Hmm.
it says if you have carnal intercourse against the order of nature
Hmm.
with man, woman, or animal,
Hmm.
you can be prosecuted,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
It does not use the word homosexuality anywhere.
Hmm. Hmm.
However, the courts had never defined what is against the order of nature, right?
Hmm.
But this was used by the police,
Hmm.
especially because, and we have such a corrupt
Yeah.
police
Yeah.
force, it's been used constantly by them to harass gay people
Hmm. Hmm.
because people were not out. They would, if they saw even two men sitting together, they'll say, okay, we take them into the thana and say, we're calling your parents.
Hmm.
And that's how they would extort money. Or we're
Hmm.
calling your family, or
Yeah.
we're calling your office, all
Hmm.
of this
Hmm.
nonsense. So at that point, it was for us, two things happened. One is we felt that it was important to build community, and you could not build community as long as this law was in place.
mm, mm,
And also, it was very critical that if we did not get this law out, we would not be able to do our work of HIV prevention
mm,
adequately.
mm.
Because it was not uncommon at that time. Every time, you see, we used to go and give out condoms in parks, near toilets, because that's where sex was happening.
Yes.
And so when we would give out these condoms every second day, our outreach workers were in the thana.
Mm,
But and then I had to go and negotiate to get them out. And then the cops would tell us, but this is a criminal activity you're promoting.
yeah.
So even though we said, oh yes, but the government of India also, promotes a program for this community,
Yeah.
they wouldn't listen to us.
Yes.
But for the longest time, we just went through this thing of negotiating with them, working with them, getting all our outreach workers out and all that.
Mm,
And we still hadn't thought about challenging the law.
mm, mm.
Then a very interesting thing happened. This was in about, I think about 2000.
10,
This was in 2000
2000.
when
Okay.
we had this young man. You see, I do a lot of family counseling,
Mm, mm,
and
mm.
it's not uncommon for families to say that, it, okay, we accept our son. Usually, it's boys who are brought in.
Yeah.
We accept our son is gay, he's like this.
Mm,
But you tell him to get married,
mm,
have kids, and then what he does in his own time is his lookout.
mm,
So it kind of dovetails into how we look at marriage, how we look at women, women's sexuality,
mm,
all of that.
mm,
And clearly, families would forbid their sons to ever come back
mm,
to Naz because we used to not tell people to become straight, right?
mm,
That's not what we were doing. So then these families would not allow their sons to come to
mm,
us.
mm.
And so then I usually used to put it out of my head.
Okay.
Then one day, this young boy who had come to us came back looking absolutely shattered.
Mm.
So I said, what happened? So he said his parents had taken him to a major government hospital, not a major hospital in Delhi,
Oh.
where he had been given shock treatment.
Oh my God. Oh.
Yes. So, it's so common for families to take their children to these babas and
Mm,
hakims and, do all kinds of black magic rituals
mm, mm,
to make their children straight. They do
mm,
all kinds of things.
mm,
And it's
mm.
always the family, obviously. No one else is going to
Even
do it.
today, those things happen
Even
right
today,
now.
it's happening. Yes, it is still happening. It is still happening. See, it's very difficult. You can change the law,
Mm, mm.
but to change attitudes and to make people understand, it's a very slow, long process.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we'll talk about the changes. But I'm just saying that at that time, this was the situation. Then at that point, I went to the National Human Rights Commission,
Mm,
and they said they would not uh, accept our complaint because it was a criminal activity. So I
mm.
said, but you're the National Human Rights Commission. They
Oh.
said, no, sorry.
Yeah.
And again, at that time they didn't, but today you look at it,
Mm,
the same NHRC
mm.
actually has a committee for LGBTQI people.
Oh. Okay.
So change does happen, but at that time, then we decided, because at that time Lawyers Collective was also looking to do something about this law. So then they worked with us, and we went to the courts, and then we went through all that. The court threw us out. We went to the Supreme Court, went back to the High Court,
Mm.
and then in 2009, the High Court, Delhi High Court, decriminalized homosexuality. And by the way,
Uh,
we asked for decriminalizing because there was no other law at that time
mm.
for child sexual abuse.
Oh.
Section
Oh.
377 was used even for child sexual
Okay.
abuse.
Okay.
So this POXO has come into existence much later. So what
Okay.
we asked for was a reading down of the law to exclude
Mm, mm.
consensual sex between people of the same sex, right?
Amendment.
So, reading down of the law, which meant that the law had to stay in place. So, suppose a child was raped,
Mm, mm.
Or suppose an animal was raped, which, by the way, animal abuse is huge in our culture. We
Yes,
don't
yes.
talk about it. We
Yes, ma'am.
just don't
We
talk
will, we
about
will,
it.
we have to talk about it in a while.
Yes. So this law is the only one that was there to protect animals and children.
Yeah.
So now POXOs come in, so it's different.
Hmm.
But so then the court said, okay, long as they are consenting adults. So we're talking consensual sex, right?
Yeah.
Over the age of 18. If you have sex with anyone below the age of 18, it is statutory rape.
Yes.
And that is something all of us need to remember. So that's how it happened. And then, of course, that time in
Hmm.
2009, it was unbelievable. The
Hmm.
number of young people who came out, the number of young people or even older people who could talk about
Hmm.
homosexuality in their home
Hmm.
because it was there everywhere around us, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it opened a lot of doors.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, after that,
Hmm.
we had Hindu, Muslim, Christian
Yes.
groups come together and
Hmm.
challenge the Delhi High Court judgment.
Hmm. Hmm.
And the Supreme Court accepted that. And then for the longest time, we were in a state of limbo.
Hmm.
But I think with the 2009 judgment, the horse had bolted the stable. No longer could you tell people to go back into the closet, right? They were out.
Hmm.
And it created the space for gay people to say, look, we're gay and we exist, which is what happened.
Hmm.
They went to the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court did listen to them and reinstated the High Court judgment and decriminalized homosexuality.
Hmm.
So that was the history of Section 377.
But it was a very big fight, right, ma'am? It was not
Yeah.
easy
No, not
because
at
you need to
all.
deal with religious groups also, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Ah.
Listen, I do believe if we want to bring about change, we have to engage with everyone, including those who do not believe in what we believe in.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's very important,
Yeah.
very important. And there are good people across the board.
Hmm.
I have met the most wonderful religious people
Hmm.
who have listened to what we have had to say and have even to some extent
Hmm.
changed their way of thinking. It's not an impossibility. But you have to learn to engage. If we want to bring about any change, we have to work across political lines, across social lines. Otherwise, this change is not going to happen very easily.
So far, you spoke about gay men, but there is also a set of communities which
Yes.
talks about lesbian, right? L,
Lesbian,
the L
yeah,
part of
lesbian,
LGBTQ.
transgender. Yes. So the whole issue about, and the reason I'm speaking, I've spoken predominantly about gay men,
Hmm.
is that because that's how it was at that time, right?
Yeah.
This LGBTQIA plus that we talk about today
Hmm.
is a more recent phenomenon.
Hmm.
We never used to talk about it when we started our work. So I'm
Oh,
so glad that we do now because if you look at, for example, um, lesbians, right?
yeah.
Now, there is absolutely nothing, no services which are targeted for lesbian women.
Hmm. Hmm.
And the reason I feel is because in a patriarchal society like ours, women's sexuality is not something that's ever spoken about or discussed
Hmm.
or
Yeah.
even acknowledged.
Yes.
And what does a lesbian do? Lesbians are at the bottom end of the totem pole
Hmm.
because as a lesbian, what am I saying? As a woman, I want to spend the rest of my life with another woman. I don't need a man.
Yeah.
And that does not go down very well with society, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So for women, it's always been difficult. For transgenders, what has happened is with the NASA judgment,
Hmm.
which was a few years ago,
Hmm.
things have changed for the trans community.
Hmm.
So at least there are some benefits, some reservations, some protections that are available to them.
Hmm.
And interestingly, when the Nalsa judgment happened, The courts very clearly said this is only for trans people.
Oh,
Do not
okay.
include anybody else.
Uh-huh.
Hmm. So today, in the 21st century, in a democracy, we have millions of people
Mm,
who do not have any basic rights.
mm,
And what is the most basic of rights that we don't even think of as a right
mm,
is, for example, the right to marry. So, can you imagine in a culture
mm.
which places such great value on marriage, we are actually denying a whole lot of people, our own citizens, the right to marry. As a matter of fact, if you don't marry, there's an issue.
Yeah.
If you're single, there's an issue. There are no spaces for single people
Yes. Mm,
in our culture.
mm,
Everything is about marriage.
mm,
And here we are denying rights that every citizen takes for granted. They can't adopt as a couple, they can't live as a couple, they can't, it's crazy. It doesn't make sense.
mm.
But unfortunately, that's what the situation is. The only thing that has happened is that the community has been decriminalized. So no longer are they seen as robbers and murderers and all
Yeah.
of that.
Mm, mm,
But that's all it is. So they still, we have a whole bunch of our own citizens who do not have rights that everyone takes for
mm,
granted.
mm. Ma'am, when we think about transgender people,
Mm,
so people, you know, take them as auspicious presence, like they invite
mm,
them when they're, constructing a new
mm,
home, or they
mm.
invite them to the marriages to for receiving blessings from them. But
Right.
the problem is, the reality is, people even hesitate to touch them. People
Mm,
hesitate to go and stand with them. People will hesitate to take photographs with them. They're badly discriminated, and I feel humiliated also. The
yeah, yeah.
way they are shown in the movies and the TV, on the TV,
Right.
is very bad. So,
Mm.
what kind of mindset, what kind of feelings these transgender go through when they come across such kind of situations, ma'am? They are used to it, or what?
It's really unfortunate that on the one hand,
Mm,
we want them to come and bless us. We want them to, when a child is born, we'll invite them. And there's a wedding,
mm,
we'll invite them to
mm,
come, right? And yet we are scared
mm,
of them because we don't know. We are afraid that they can curse us. These are the reasons many people are hesitant.
mm,
But look, this is what I see as the Kinner community,
mm,
what we traditionally called Kinners, no?
mm, mm,
They have a very strong way, they have a very strong community, they have a way of life. It
mm,
is a pratha.
mm,
Um, and it's interesting what when the Nalsa judgment came, you had the Kinner community say they were also trans, which many of them are.
mm,
However, the trans community, like the trans men
mm,
specifically, felt that they did not have any space within this judgment. It's
mm,
really interesting. So there is this dichotomy that exists.
mm.
But the hijra, the hijra or the Kinner community, what we call Kinner,
Yeah.
um, has to some extent benefited from the Nalsa judgment. For example, they can now get change their names a lot easier than before. They
Mm,
can get all their identities made in those names.
mm, mm,
The court said they should, and this is there are some problems. For example, the court said they should all be considered OBC so that they can get reservation in jobs.
yeah. Yeah.
Except that many of them are not OBC,
Mm, mm,
and say why should we be called OBC when we're not? But those are the nitty gritties of the law. But
mm.
overall, at least there is some protection now today for the trans community, including the Kinner community,
Okay.
which was not there earlier. But unfortunately, it is only limited to them.
Okay.
It does not include the rest of the community.
What about people's attitude towards them? Because it is not still changing, right, ma'am? they
Yeah,
still look at them as untouchables.
yeah, yeah, of course. Because I think a lot of it has to do with us as a culture.
Mm,
To begin with, we are so stratified on class and caste lines. We very clearly and often will look down on
mm.
whom we consider to be lesser than us.
Yeah, yeah,
It's there in us.
yeah.
It's a part of our, can I dare say, our DNA,
Mm, mm.
literally.
Yeah.
Because I think what we don't know, we maybe we are scared, maybe we're looking down on someone who's so different.
Mm,
I don't know. There is so unless we work towards changing the attitude of people, which slowly is changing. For example, today you have a police officer who's a trans person.
mm-hmm.
You have
Wow.
professors and principals who are trans
Mm,
people, right? Slowly things will change. But it's a very slow process to change attitudes and to change the way people think about the community because they don't know enough about the community.
yeah.
They don't engage enough with the community. It's a very slow process. And I think what we don't know
Mm,
and what we don't understand, we're scared of. Long process to change any attitudes. Look, Suman, if you look at even issues of disability
yeah.
and this intersectionality of these issues that we're talking about
Mm,
with disability, nothing, there's nothing.
yes.
Look
Yes.
at sexuality and disability. We completely deny the existence of sexuality in disabled people.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't want to talk about it. We don't want to create an environment where they can learn to express themselves. Wherever you look, this kind of discrimination that exists is very problematic.
What I feel is this has to be corrected from the root level, and this has to be a part of our education system.
Yeah.
LGBTQ
Mhm.
plus whatever it have to
Mm.
be taught in the schools, but it is being ignored completely from our syllabus.
Not only in the schools, Suman.
Mm,
The courts themselves have said you have to change the attitude of communities. How will that happen?
mm.
One is through a process of education, right?
Yeah.
We don't even have sex education in our school
Yes.
system.
Yes. Unfortunately.
Can you imagine? We don't we don't trust our children.
Yeah.
What is this craziness?
Yeah.
But what we need is this education and issues of LGBTQIA plus to be taught at every level.
Mm, mm,
You need it to be in the curriculum that trains doctors,
mm.
healthcare professionals,
Yeah.
the bureaucracy, the police. Wherever there is a formal education system, there should be
Mm,
a component of LGBTQI issues in that curriculum.
mm, mm,
Because through knowledge and through change in attitude is when we are going to be able to bring about change and make acceptance happen.
mm,
For example, think about when we look at HIV prevention and care,
mm.
we work with highly marginalized communities.
Yeah.
We work with sex workers.
Mm,
We work with men having sex with men.
mm,
And these communities are find it so difficult to get any kind of services.
mm,
Healthcare services are inaccessible to them.
mm,
So it's so important. And it's all about attitude.
mm,
I think if attitudes can change, if we learn how to stop discriminating
mm,
and how to respect differences, and these are very taught and learned behaviors.
mm.
It has to happen from the time the child is a child. So it's how do we issues of caste, issues of class,
Yeah.
unless someone teaches us to look at it from a different lens
Mm,
or to look at it differently, we are not going to do that because we are. a product of our environment.
Yeah.
And our environment is teaching us to discriminate.
There are so many countries who punishes very badly
Yeah.
to the people with such things like
Yeah. People who are
LGBTQ, and
gay, yes.
even they give death penalties, right?
That's a, yeah.
And that is
Yeah.
happening even today,
Yes.
in this generation, in this modern civilization.
Yes.
You have any
It's
hope that
awful.
there will be a change in those countries?
I don't know. Yes, I'm sure change. I mean, it has to happen, right? But it is so difficult to bring about um, this kind of change because it is so linked to attitudes. There are, for example, so many African countries and Middle Eastern countries where this happens to be true, right?
Yeah, UAE
How does one?
also, Saudi Arabia, UAE, such a developed,
Yes,
advanced
yes, yeah,
countries.
yeah, yeah.
I
That's what
have
I'm
uh,
saying.
I have good connections with Kenya, ma'am. Even in
Hmm.
Kenya, LGBTQ is prohibited.
Absolutely, there are quite a few African nations where even today,
Hmm.
as we speak, their parliaments are passing laws
Hmm.
to put people from this community to death.
Hmm.
Can you imagine being put to death because of who you love
Hmm.
or who you want to spend the rest of your life with?
Hmm.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's illogical.
And unfortunately, the community size is big in those countries.
Look, in all countries,
Hmm.
in all societies, you will find
Hmm.
people who are from the LGBTQIA plus community.
Hmm.
And as far as I'm concerned, it's not about numbers.
Hmm.
It is about valuing life,
Yeah.
respecting
Yeah. Yeah.
different ways of being,
Yeah.
caring about our of those around us. So I
Ma'am,
don't
you
even
s- you you
get into this
started.
numbers game because we just don't know the numbers.
Yeah. Yeah. Correct.
But
Yes.
all I know is that people from this community are all around us.
Hmm.
And we have to stop this discrimination and hate.
You started working for gay men in America, right? So
Mm,
now you are working in India. Okay.
mm.
Tell me, ma'am, what is the differences you have noticed in the people's mindset between these both countries, US and India?
I don't think mindsets are that different anywhere in the world. People are people.
Hmm.
There are some people who are accepting, and there are some who are not.
Hmm.
Some who will use various reasons like religion
Hmm.
or or whatever to discriminate.
Hmm.
But I think what is important where we see
Hmm.
that changes happened
Hmm.
because it has been forced by law.
Hmm.
And that's why I think that the community needs laws to protect them. They
Yeah.
need laws that they can fall back on.
Hmm.
We can't wait for society to start accepting the LGBTQIA community because then we'll be waiting forever.
Yeah.
So the law, a strong law which will protect, whether it's an overarching anti-discriminatory law or it is laws that are inclusive of everyone,
Hmm.
that is what is going to force change.
Hmm.
So for example, recently our Supreme Court did what I can never forgive them for, which is they did not, there was this whole right to marriage thing that came up in the courts.
Hmm. Hmm.
And not only what they did is they flipped it to parliament.
Hmm.
But the moment something like this happens, I think because the biggest issue is getting families to accept, no? Once
Yeah.
families accept, everything falls into place.
Yes.
The very fact that the right to marry was denied,
Hmm.
these very families will say, see, we always told you that was wrong.
Yeah.
And now even our Supreme Court is saying so.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it is, I think we need laws which are inclusive.
mm.
All citizens of the country must have equal laws. To me, it doesn't make sense at
Yeah,
all.
yeah, yeah.
That you have a bunch of people, you're saying, okay, they can exist.
Mm,
We don't mind their existence. But I'm sorry, they can't marry, they can't adopt, they can't inherit, they can't have children through IVF. Are they?
mm, mm.
Why not?
Yeah.
Then this whole ridiculous argument that gay people can't provide homes
Mm,
where children are brought up with love and affection. Excuse me? Have you ever been to family court?
mm,
And if you haven't, please go and sit there. I will tell everyone, I will request everyone, just go and sit in family court for half a day.
mm.
And what you're seeing there is straight people
Yes,
who have made the lives of children and their families impossible,
yes, yes. True, ma'am. 100%.
right?
Yes,
And we are saying, oh, why? So if straight people are the only ones who can create a home for children, what are they doing? Why do we need family court? So it's about loving and caring, no?
yes.
It's not about how you're defining how. I mean, for I'm a single woman,
Mm,
and I know I have a family of choice.
mm, mm,
I know that there are certain people in my life who I consider family.
mm.
So I may not have the traditional husband, in laws, children, all of that happening with me.
Yeah, yeah.
But we all choose our own families, no? It's
Yes,
possible.
yes, yes.
So I can't understand what people are going on and on about and making such a song and dance about nothing.
Tell me, when Supreme Court have allowed them to live in a
Hmm.
relationship, not making them, not providing them rights to get married makes no sense, right? So,
None. Zero. Zero.
even in BNS, the laws are not refined, ma'am, for
No, no,
marriage.
nothing. Are now coming to BMS.
Hmm,
Now, this is really interesting
hmm,
because now what BMS has done is it has taken 377 totally out of the
hmm,
loop.
hmm,
So what does that mean? Because right now,
hmm.
because 377 has been read down, it has decriminalized homosexuality,
Yeah.
right?
No one can arrest them or abuse them in the
Right,
court of law. Yeah.
right, right. Except that, what happens to men who are raped?
Ah.
Where do they go? Because our rape laws are not gender neutral.
Hmm.
So where will they go?
Rapes didn't have any specifications in the law, ma'am. Now,
No,
according to the new
no,
BNS.
no.
Oh.
So 377,
Hmm,
which was used for rape against men
hmm,
and for rape against animals,
hmm, hmm.
has been removed. So
Oh.
where do we? I work a lot with animals too.
Yes, ma'am. I want to bring up that topic now.
But
Yeah.
so where do we go to fight for the rights of animals who are being raped?
Recently, I have seen a WhatsApp video circulating where a cow has been raped by few.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes. Cows, donkeys, dogs routinely.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what are we? I mean, which world are we living in?
But I'm surprised, ma'am. Now these all things are allowed without
What?
penalizing, according to the new BNS.
No, no, not allowed. But there are no laws to fight.
So that means it is indirectly allowing you. Government is allowing it, right, ma'am?
Completely ignored because they don't matter. Animals don't matter.
Hmm.
Men having sex, gay men don't matter.
Oh my
Women have
God,
never mattered.
this is vulnerable.
Absolutely. It is ridiculous that in this day and age we are in this situation.
Now tell me your initiation towards animal welfare, ma'am. Like what made you to think about animals too?
I think it was the evolution, my the way my own understanding of rights evolved.
Hmm.
Of course, I've always been very passionately fond of animals. We were brought up with a lot of animals. Our whole family is very involved with the care of animals.
Hmm.
But I I increasingly when I saw all this rape and this killing and maiming
Hmm.
of animals, I then started looking at this whole issue of rights.
Hmm.
And it started making me think. Then I started reading about these issues. There's some wonderful, very enlightened people
Hmm.
who have written on these issues, on ethics, on law, and it's it, my whole understanding of how I was looking at rights started changing, and I started thinking, how can it be possible that rights can only accrue to humans?
Hmm.
What about other life forms?
Hmm.
Why are we so specious?
Hmm.
How can we not look at rights? Doesn't that animal also feel the pain?
Hmm.
Doesn't that animal also have a right to be in an environment which is caring and loving and giving?
Hmm.
Why is it only humans? And why do we do this? Why do we consider ourselves above everybody else?
Hmm.
And we know that we cannot live without the rest of this universe.
Yeah.
Please look, in times of COVID, that should at least make us open our eyes.
Yes.
That it is about the land, the environment, animals, humans, all of us living together.
Yeah. But COVID time have opened the eyes towards movies, OTTs, and YouTube, unfortunately.
That's all. That's all. So as human beings, that's all we always find what works for us, right?
Yeah, man.
We're not looking at anything beyond our own fulfillment.
Hmm.
Well, I mean, I can't make a blanket statement like that because I know and I've met many wonderful human beings who have done incredible work.
1% of the total world.
Yeah, but at least they're there.
Hmm.
And one really values that and one really is thankful that they are there.
The
Otherwise,
poor
even the
animal
little
can't
bit
even
of the
open their.
environment that is left wouldn't be there.
Yeah. What makes me sad is, ma'am, these animals, poor animals, can't even open their mouths and complain.
Yeah, yeah,
Recently, ma'am,
yeah.
very recently, few weeks ago, there was a news article covered in all the major news medias regarding a
Mm.
rape on a gang rape on garden lizard.
This is like crazy, no? The moment you
Gang rape
start
on
looking at
garden
these
lizard.
issues, you realize that it's just madness what we are surrounded by. And it is so sad because think of how alienated we are as a people and as a society
Hmm.
that we do this.
Yeah.
And it is always the weak and the vulnerable, obviously.
Yeah.
So it is voiceless animals, it is voiceless children,
Yeah.
it is voiceless women, invariably, or trans people who are getting raped,
Yeah.
who are getting violated.
Even
And
dogs
now
are
the
in
laws
big
don't
number,
protect
right, ma'am,
any
who
one
got
of
raped.
these, except women to some extent and children now, maybe.
You have won lot of prestigious awards internationally. One such award is from France, the most
Mm.
honorable award. I want you to speak a little on that, ma'am.
It was one of those incredible, I had absolutely no idea that I was going to get that award.
Mm.
And I got the intimation of that award in the mail, and I was shocked that I'd got it because one is not, I mean, for me, this is my life, right?
Mm.
And one is not expecting
Mm.
any such thing to happen. So, of course, it means a lot to be acknowledged in this manner, no?
Yeah, yeah,
It's wonderful to
yeah.
see that someone is valuing what you're doing and what you have done and all of that.
Mm.
And it really made me feel so honored. It was quite incredible that the French government would think of giving me an award like this.
Mm. Mm.
And something totally unexpected. But that is, you know, I mean, one is happy because all these awards also kind of highlight the issue, no?
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Makes a difference.
Team Suman versus Human salutes you for the incredible work you're doing for the society. Ma'am, now we have come to the stage where I have this question for all my guests coming on Suman versus Human. And obviously, you will have no option to say no, you have to answer this, ma'am. I, Suman Bhokre, am giving you all the superpowers in your hands to change something in this world. So, what is that one particular thing is going to be?
The one thing I would change is the way people think. I would wish to change that. I would wish all of us to become respectful, caring, loving human beings.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for giving me time to host you on Suman versus Human. You really made my day, ma'am. You really made my episode so special. I really thank you from the bottom of my heart.
No, Suman, thank you so much for having me. It means a lot.